Damon Khan here for Seconds Out with the one and only star of the George Groves Boxing Club, George Groves himself. George, I've been astutely listening to Colin Hart episodes, Ben Whitaker, my favourite so far, as well as Don McRae as well, which dropped the other day too. I'm going to listen to the other one that's dropped as well too. But any more irons in the fire for big superstars on the podcast?
Well, yeah, we'd love to have plenty. Nothing in the pre-record yet, but we've got a few real good episodes to come. We've got to wait for them. But yeah, Ben Whitaker kindly came on the show. He's a big star at the moment. You know, he's flying high. So he told us some fascinating stuff about him as a person, as a fighter, as an athlete, and you know, the stuff that goes viral is obviously the showboating. And then if I could have just talked to him for 2 hours about showboating and hoping that a couple of those clips would go viral. But we spoke about his love of boxing, where it comes from, talking about his influence from his dad, and he works. His coach was his dad's coach, and they just used to watch Cuban boxers, and he wasn't allowed to throw a punch until he got his footwork right. And hearing stuff like that from a fighter is incredible. It's incredible, because you think like now in this era where the dream is to go viral, isn't it? To go viral with anything, but I've got time for him, because when I watch him and when I commentate on him or I see him ringside, you can see a lot of ability, a lot of like boxing ability, obviously laced in with his own panache, his own style and his own flair and showboating, but to get to the heart of what he's all about, and boxing first, you've got to be able to fight. You can't just be a gimmick. So it was great to have that episode with him. And then move on to the next one. We had Don McRae on, who's obviously a boxing journalist and boxing writer. He's wrote great books in the past, and to come on and tell us great stories, through the eras. So you can be a boxing fan of multiple generations to invest in Don's work. Today's episode was with Johnny Harris, who is an actor. People know him from This Is England and Snow White and the Huntsman, I think it is. He plays one of the Seven Dwarfs. But he also wrote and starred in Jawbone, which was homage to his amateur boxing days, where he grew up fighting out of the Fitzroy Lodge in South London, and his coach Mick Carney, who was like a father, godfather, grandfather figure to him, much like many other sort of amateur boxers, past and present, up and down the country. So every good boxing gym has these characters in it that they're the first ones in to open up. They're sweeping up, turn the lights off at the end of the night, and then they give a great chance for young boys and girls now to sort of put their attention, their energy in a positive direction, teach them a lot of life skills, and then sometimes, if they're fortunate enough to do what me and many others do, is make a living out of it. So we pay tribute to them, and we owe them a lot. So that was lovely, Johnny's episode. Also, he's a phenomenal actor. So anything you ain't seen of his, get on it. He's in Gentleman from Moscow, which is out. I think he's finished shooting now. That should be out soon. So that's going to be one to watch.
And so is your live with Carl Froch too. I'm hoping to secure a ticket for that as well. I wonder if you saw his little sit down with Shia LaBeouf as well. That wasn't something I was expecting to see on my feed, but I wonder if you knew anything about that beforehand.
Well, Carl said that he got booked for like as a consultant now. I think he went out for a movie and he was going to do some boxing choreographing and teaching him how to few skills. And he listed off a load of names, but it felt a bit braggy, so I sort of half zoned out. And I must have missed that he said Shia LaBeouf. But Carl being Carl, he's not backwards, he's coming forwards. He's got him for a sit down. He's on the channel. I haven't seen it. I saw a few clips of it. It starts off as sort of behind the scenes. So, but that's Carl. Carl's very good at creating that content. He's working really, really well. He's hosting, and he's therefore like almost broadcasting now. Channel's flying. Really happy for him, and we're lucky enough to secured him for our first live event. Thanks to the plug. So we're going to the Shepherd's Bush Empire on the 22nd of May, which is obviously my neck of the woods down in London, for our very first George Groves Boxing Club live event, podcast recording, and then timing it with our 10-year anniversary. Me and Francis rematch at Wembley. He's coming down. We're going to talk many things Wembley, but also there's a lot of I think it's going to be more of a performance in terms of a physical performance than a talking performance. There's going to be a lot of activities, a lot of audience interactions. Might be a push and a pull, maybe a few Rubiks Cubes. We haven't really finalised a formal script yet, but it's going to be fun.
You still do the Rubiks Cube?
Of course I can. Don't ask me to do it right now, but I can do it. So it's not that hard. I can't remember, but there's however many thousand different combinations you could have. There's only one right combination. Didn't find it on fight night, but I found it at the press conference at least.
And there's only one George Groves, and I want to go to the super middleweight division where you have obviously had your experiences at, and that's at the top of the tree with Canelo Alvarez, who's searching for an opponent. We believe it to be Jaime Munguia as that opponent. Are you happy with that opponent? A lot of people are kind of looking for, well, they weren't looking for the Charlo fight. They may be looking for the Benavidez fight, but Munguia stands to be a good opponent, maybe a good in-between, whilst maybe in the future we get the Benavidez fight.
Yeah, but we wanted the Benavidez fight. I thought that was the one that made great sense. Benavidez in great form. And it sort of felt like sooner rather than later, because he's such a big dude, he's going to be moving up, and has obviously moved up now by all accounts. So it's a shame that fight didn't get made, but with this sort of Cinco de Mayo, May 4th, I think it is, date, it's looming. So if they want to stick to that date, then for a huge fight like that, when was it going to get announced? Jaime Munguia, I think, is probably the next best dude for the job. Went over Ryder, you look good. Been around, it feels like a long time now. Great record, but when was he going to step up and fight like a star? So, former middleweight world champion, wasn't he? But now he's up at super middleweight. I think that's the best fight. They're talking about Berlanga, who had the win the other week, but that feels like a real quick turnaround as well. Who knows? Other than that, it's like who's there? Do you know what I mean? He really did sort of clear out the super middleweight division real quick. So it was like, who's next? Crawford, it seems bizarre. He ain't got enough time to put that much weight on, I bet. Who knows where they'll land? Maybe the delay's been because he's moved from PBC. He's going to go back to DAZN and Matchroom. I don't know, but he's still got all the belts, hasn't he? Which is probably frustrating. That's why it feels like super middleweight division just feels a bit like meh at the moment. Even though he's got the biggest fighter in the world holding all the belts, it's just like doesn't really feel that dynamic or competitive at the moment. So that's a shame. But let's see him. Hopefully they'll announce something soon. We'll see him back in action. He's still young, but he's got an awful long career now, hasn't he? Canelo. So might only have a few fights left where we see him really up for it. So don't want to waste that. Let's see it.
As I was sitting down over there, a clip come through on my Twitter feed, X feed as it's called now, and it was of the sparring between Chris Eubank Jr. and Carl Froch way back in the day, and how Chris Eubank Jr. was having this great spar with Carl, and Chris's name was apparently brought up in negotiations, or at least the talk of a fight with Canelo Alvarez. Could you ever envisage a Canelo Alvarez-Chris Eubank Jr. fight, or just feel like he's more likely to, at least in the next steps, take on the likes of a Kell Brook or a Yannick Alam-Khalili? And do you have any interest in those fights too, either?
I'm not interested in Eubank Kell Brook. I don't think that's great. I mean, Kell Brook's was a middleweight, and he's been retired a significant amount of time now. I know he's sort of feels like he's in no man's land, and he's talking about maybe coming back, but it's not really great for him. Who was the middleweight champion you just said?
Yannick.
It was Yannick. Sorry, yeah, Yannick. I don't think Eubank will take that. Yannick. He wants a Conor Benn fight, and it's hard to blame him if he's going to get paid 10 million quid to fight a welterweight who's been out of the year for however long. He's been out of the ring for however long and been mentally tortured, and tortured himself. Then it's hard to take a fight of anyone else. I don't know how much money there is to put together for him, not just for that fight, but for a Alvarez fight, because usually the Alvarez opponents get almost like a set fee. And the bonus is you fight this dude, you beat him, you're in it for a massive rematch, and also you're a star with big fights in the future. But I I don't think Eubank would back himself to beat Canelo, so he'd want the money up front, and what that would be, who knows? Because he is a big name. That would be a legitimate pay-per-view over here and do huge numbers. Like if he's the only pay-per-view name here in the UK outside the heavyweight division, and he's never won a world title. So it's just one. I asked the guys, all the broadcasters, how did you become pay-per-view? None of them really know. Why is this one pay-per-view? Oh, he just has traction. Why? I asked the journalist, why does his quote get in the papers and his quote not? I don't know. It's just the way he says it. So he said the same fucking thing. It's just some people get it, some people don't. It's just how it is. So I don't think that fight will happen because it just feels like that would take longer than Cinco de Mayo to put together.
George, I want to get your thoughts on next weekend's action, AJ and Ngannou. I imagine you've been asked about it a lot, so I'll try and keep the questions fresh. And I want to ask you, look, when you got to the higher fights in your career, when you're up against a man you maybe know who might be bigger, stronger than you physically, they have the edge over you, like maybe Ngannou does over AJ. Is that ever in your consciousness in the fight? Is that something you ever worry about? And do you feel like AJ might be worried about that, given Francis Ngannou's expertise in MMA and those clinches, those moments in the fights?
Yeah, maybe. I would say element of unknown, which is can be like fear factor for some fighters. It can just be something that you got to somehow try and mentally prepare for. I can imagine he can whack hard. They say he's the hardest punching person on the planet, however they measure that. I see him hit the speed, the sort of the punch machine the other day. He does look like he can whack. But obviously boxing's all about timing and ring craft and setting stuff up and defense. So it's not just about who can punch the hardest. But he is certainly a strong guy. I can imagine he is a lot stronger than Joshua, in the clinches and stuff like that. And he's got punch power. He's only got punch power. So something for Joshua to pay attention to. But really, when you think about boxing ability, we're talking about a guy who won the Olympics. This is the highest standard of boxing ability is usually winning an Olympic gold, and then he's gone on to unify in the heavyweight division. So there's been lots of guys. He's been involved in the sport a long time. There's no more talking about becoming a better fighter and learning. I've still got loads of improvements to make. Sure, everyone can always continue to improve, but Joshua's there. He's done it. You see, so he should be supremely confident. And see this as a gift. It's a gift, really, isn't it? You're going to fight for a non-title. I'm sure he's getting paid a lot of money, and you're fighting a 0-1 MMA fighter. So it's a gift, but he doesn't want to get knocked out, certainly. And if he does, then he just fights Wilder, don't he? Battle of the beatens to become unbeaten.
The other question is, and there was a debate around it last month as to whether Joshua, when he gets hit, he stays hit, and whether he's chinning, that sort of aspect. I remember people were lobbying that at you towards the end of your career. How detrimental is that when people think that about you? And is there such a concept? There must be to a degree, but being hit and staying hit, do you think that applies to Joshua?
Well, the expression we use when he says someone stays hit, it's like their punch resistance has gone. That's kind of different to just being vulnerable, so I think I was always labelled as vulnerable because I got dropped earlier on in my career, and then later on I get knocked out against Froch. So there's always that vulnerability. I get dropped against Badu Jack. There's times where, I've been vulnerable, and I think Joshua falls into that vulnerability because you can see, like, at times he does look a bit open, and when he does get caught, he sort of he has gone down. At times he's got up to win. Sometimes he hasn't got up to win. So but I don't think he stays hit. But maybe he has. I'm trying to think now. Usually someone gets buzzed at the start of the round, they just can't clear their legs. It just doesn't come back. But I haven't noticed that with Joshua. I wouldn't. I don't think he's shown a lot of signs of that. But maybe he has and missed it. And if he has, then he's in trouble. Because I think Ngannou will be patient. He'll he doesn't need to throw a lot of shots. He's going to look for quality over quantity. You know, he's not a conditioned championship level fighter. He hasn't done that. He hasn't got years banked off that. He's going to want to land, and when he does land, he wants that to pay dividend. So if Joshua gets caught and he stays hit, then it's not good for him. But no, to be honest, I don't think he's there. I don't think that's him.
Lastly, you're a man who knows about great British rivalries. Taylor versus Catchwell 2. Do you feel that has the distinction, like your rivalry with Groves has that distinction of one that will last through the ages and years?
I don't think it would be what mine and Cole's was, because it was always going to be really hard to top, you know, because it was fierce beforehand, like intensely fierce. Then the controversy, like the mega fight, the fight delivers, the controversy of the first fight, go straight into a rematch. Like the difference between having straight into a rematch and not letting it linger for years is the difference between, you know, people don't talk about the Eubank Ben fights as such. They just talk about the rivalry, and even now that's because it's a bygone era. None of us were really around to remember it. But I think it will be one. It'll be in you know, a pound for pound list of top 8 or something of British rivalries, because we'll see how the second fight turns out. You know, hopefully it's another great fight, and I think it will be. Found out it's still at that light welterweight 140, which might be really tough for Taylor to make. I think he looks tight at the weight. He's looked tight at the weight for a while, so that might pay a dividend in the result. But it's one, and the build up already for this second press conference for the second fight was spicy. So I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be good.
We're missing a big British rivalry, don't you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, who else would it be? You know, like, so we got
Wood Warrington.
We got Wood Warrington. I mean, like, you know, I was thinking there straight away, like Conor Benn and Eubank, but they haven't even fought. You know, so Buatsi Yard, that could be coming. I don't know if Buatsi or any of those sort of guys would ever have that sort of rivalry, because Buatsi's just not that way. He can get in the zone before a fight, but afterwards they're out in Ghana eating food together. Do you know what I mean? Which is lovely for a lot of people. They love that. Do you know what I mean? But usually those sort of rivalries, I don't think we'll see Taylor Catchwell up in Edinburgh sitting over some Scottish oats, you know, the morning after their fight together. So, but maybe I'll be wrong.
George, final one just popped into my head. I apologise. Fury, Usyk, you're one of the very few who has put their neck on the line to say, I believe that Usyk wins the fight against Tyson Fury. With all the signs that were coming out of Fury's camp and this maybe new camp, do you feel that it gives him more of an opportunity to turn that tide around for people who are picking Usyk like you are, to maybe make those preparations to beat Usyk?
Yeah. I mean, some fighters they really thrive and off of public opinion, and when everyone's on their side, you know, that they brings the best out in them. Sometimes when everyone's against them, it brings the best out in them. I think Fury for a long time just had everyone on his side. You know, he was just like a perfect storm of like public opinion. You know, he balloons up in weight. People forget about, you know, all the other stuff that sort of alienated him and made him unpopular before. He loses all the weight and he gets a bum decision against Wilder in the first fight. You know, you can't beat it. At the same time, Joshua just being sort of the perfect A side has a slip against Ruiz, and then all of a sudden the tables are turned. But I feel like lately things are starting to turn in Usyk's favour with the sort of the Fury's now coming down the hill. People aren't just blindly on his side, you know, and that might have an effect on him. It might motivate him, or it might not. You know, he might have got comfortable being the people's champion, you know, whatever that means. But every now and again there'll be characters who you can't topple. Like Usyk, he's an amazing boxer. He's a funny guy. He goes off and fights wars in between his in between camps. Like he's a hard man to attack, you know, and to belittle and to put in his place. And he's cool as a cucumber. He's travelled the world. So I think there's a slight change of tact maybe from Fury. And yeah, sure, he's been very. What's he been over the last few years? Just like you know which one you're going to get. Need me now, yeah.
In like 2 minutes.
Yeah, great. He's been very, very, very different, hasn't he, Joe? Like he's a character who's impossible to predict. Sometimes he's friendly, sometimes he's not, sometimes he's argumentative, sometimes he's not. So, but I feel like now, I think he's zoned in on the fight a little bit more now. I think since that Ngannou fight, it looks like he's like, right, fucking hell, everyone's saying I could get beat here. Can't just believe my own hype. I've got to knuckle down. Looks like he's in a lot better shape. And we'll see how the bodies are faring. It's not a foregone. Usyk's not young and fresh. He's older. He's had arguably more fights if you include his amateur career as well. So be wear and tear on his body. They've both been out the ring now for a while. So it's a fascinating one. I'm looking forward to that. I really hope it happens. I'm not sure it will. I really do hope it does.
Two masters of mind games, just like you, George. Pleasure picking your brain on a couple of boxing topics. Thanks so much for picking the Seconds Out. All the best, sir.
No worries, mate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.